Most of us avoid talking about death or serious illness until we're forced to. But what if those conversations could be one of the most loving and empowering gifts you ever give your family? I know from my own experience with unexpected loss and not being fully prepared how overwhelming those moments can be. Today's guest, Catherine Hammond, has dedicated her life to making those conversations easier and more meaningful, while also leading her team and community with compassion and clarity. Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked, the podcast for anyone ready to lead themselves and others differently. I'm Bukola, keynote speaker with over 20 years of experience in HR. I'm a firm believer that all leadership begins with self-leadership, because when you choose to change your pattern, you unlock the power to change your world. Catherine Hammond is an award-winning estate planning attorney, speaker, and author who helps people protect what matters most, their families, their legacies, and their peace of mind. Inspired by her mother's journey with early onset Alzheimer's, Catherine created the True Wealth Family Legacy System to help clients go beyond legal documents and preserve their values, stories, and wisdom. Her book, The True Wealth Family Legacy Blueprint, is available now. She joins us today to share how proactive planning can spare loved ones stress, ensure your wishes are honored, and leave a legacy that's more than just assets. It's the essence of who you are. Catherine, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm fabulous. It's so good to be with you.
No, I am so excited to have you. Thank you for making time. Now, before we dive in, is there anything I missed? I did my best to represent you with a strong bio, but is there anything I missed that you want to add?
The only thing I would add is on the personal side, while I spend my days helping other families, I am very much in the middle of a beautiful season with my own family right now as well. I have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren who range in age from 2 to 9. And so they're the lights of my lives and a constant inspiration for my work with families.
No, thank you for adding that. Awesome. And what about if anyone wants to reach you after this interview? What are good ways to get in touch with you?
Yes, our website is truewealthfamily.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on Instagram at catherinehammond.life.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's go ahead and get into it. So on the show, we explore patterns that shape how we show up in life and leadership. Before you became an attorney, what were some experiences, big or small, that shaped the way you lead today?
Before I was an attorney, I was a child and then a teenager. And I think back to those years, I never expected to be a leader in any way. I was pretty shy. I was fairly insecure, I would say. I never saw myself as a leader. And yet I started to hear that kind of feedback. Maybe by the time I was in high school, my friends would say things about my leadership. But I think growing up in a family where things were rather chaotic, I didn't have a lot of security. I think I took that into my early days of leadership, trying to make sure that everybody liked me so that things would be okay. As you are well aware, not the best way to lead a team.
Well, it can work until it doesn't, right? It can work until it doesn't, for sure. But no, that makes sense. Now, your mother's journey with early onset Alzheimer's clearly had a profound impact on you. How did that shape your vision of service and leadership?
Yeah, I grew up taking care of my mom. She was non-functionally depressed throughout my childhood, and she was a single mom. And so I think service was just built into my life. And there was a season when I was becoming a young adult when that felt like a burden. And it's what I circled back to with my career. And what most excites me today about practicing law is that I can do it with a focus on really serving people and serving families who are going through some of the same things that I went through with my mom when I was still a teenager and really had no idea how to handle what was happening to her.
Okay. When you think back to your early days in practice, how would you describe your leadership style then, and how does it compare to how you lead now? I think you even talked about how there was some pleasing that showed up earlier. Talk more about that and compare it to how you are today.
In my early days of leadership, and I'll say well into my more what should have been mature days of leadership, I was afraid to hold people accountable. because I wanted people to be happy. And that caused me not to be clear and direct with people. It caused me to then get frustrated with them when they weren't doing what we needed them to do. And I think it got in the way of me having, relationships of real integrity with people because I was afraid to talk about what was really going on in the room. And I went through some hard things that taught me that that wasn't working at all. That has been a process to grow into a leadership style where I really enjoy being clear and direct with my team. And they really appreciate it because I'm honest with them and I can tell them exactly what adjustments we need them to make in order for them to succeed and in order for the business to succeed.
You had mentioned that there was a moment where you saw a need to change. Is there anything more you can tell us about that moment and what was it that got your attention where you were open to trying something new?
Yes, that moment was 3 years ago. And I had a director of operations and a managing attorney who I was planning on handing over my CEO role to. And our revenue had been a little bit slow that year. And we had come up with all these initiatives. And everybody else on my team was promising to implement these initiatives, but it wasn't ever happening. And so I kept checking in on it and seeing, what do we need to do? How can I support you to make that happen? And there just was literally no movement. It was like having a giant mirror held up to my face because they were so used to me not holding them accountable. And then as I started pushing and saying, this is not optional, these are things that we have to implement, and we had all agreed on them, they didn't respond well. And it became a story on the team that I was micromanaging and that I was some horrible ogre who had no idea what was going on in the business. And I discovered some things. I discovered a secret Microsoft Teams channel where they were bad-mouthing our clients, bad-mouthing me, bad-mouthing my husband. And I realized that all of my over-generosity and tolerance had created an environment where a healthy level of accountability was not welcomed. And so I ended up having to say goodbye to every single member of that team, everyone. And it was the most painful season of my adult life. Now I have rebuilt a team, but built it on a foundation of respect and integrity and honesty that feels good to all of us.
That's got to feel good. I mean, it's your business and there's so much heart that goes into building a business, and to have to pivot and get it back on track. I mean, you probably appreciate it even more now, given what you've gone through.
Absolutely.
I want to move to leadership and action. So when you lead a business, your business deals with some technical expertise. Like, you have to be pretty strong on the legal side for the nature of what you do. So you have to balance that technical expertise with deep compassion. How do you intentionally model that balance for your team?
How do I intentionally model that balance? I'm an achiever. And they see that in me. And so the commitment to excellence on the technical side is something that they see in me every day. And I've learned to hire people who have a high commitment to learning and excellence. So that piece is fairly standard in the legal industry. The other side of things, the softer side, the compassionate side, is also something that I think we can hire for. And I can't help but be warm and fuzzy and touchy-feely with my team because that's who I am. That's how I show up in the world. And I've learned to balance that with the other side of clear expectations and accountability.
Got it. And so now, what's a leadership decision that you've made that you're especially proud of? I know you've given us a few already. Maybe that's it, but I don't want to assume. What leadership decision would you say you've made that you're especially proud of, and why was it so pivotal?
The one that I'm especially proud of is to make that change with my team when we had the toxicity going on. When I discovered it, it was actually late one night, and I literally stayed up all night upset about what I had discovered about who my team was. And I had to make a choice. Was I going to come into integrity with myself and require of my team that they show up in the same way that I require myself to show up with them and with other people? So making the decision to cut a few people immediately and then eventually say goodbye to everybody put things in jeopardy for me. And I knew that I would lose the whole team if I let any of them go. And I knew that it could impact the business. And I knew that I couldn't be true to myself without doing it. And I learned that if I'm not being true to myself, nothing is going to work. It will be out of integrity and things just won't flow.
And can you share a time when a leadership decision maybe didn't go as planned, but you learned from it? I think you kind of touched on that too, but if there's anything you want to expand on.
I think in growing the firm over the years, we grew very quickly. And there were, my business has been around for 20 years now. There were many times in there where I had to make staffing decisions about either staffing ahead of the need or waiting until we had a need and everybody kind of feeling the pinch a little bit while we were growing before we hired. There were times that I hired ahead of the need. Late 2019 was one of those times. And then I had to let somebody go in the spring of 2020 because everything came to almost a complete halt and I wasn't able to support that additional position that I thought I was going to be able to support. That's hard because it's somebody's entire life.
Yeah, no, definitely. And recruiting is such a tricky thing because you want the team to be fully staffed and functional, but timing is so key. I mean, it's hard to know if you didn't hire that person and waited. It's hard to know if the ideal person would have been available. So it's constant decisions that you have to think through. But no, thank you for sharing that. Now, when it comes to mentoring, how do you mentor or develop others so that they can carry forward the values that you've built into your practice?
For me, the most important thing is talking about why I do things the way that I do them and inquiring of my mentees, my team members in this context, about what it is that they're actually trying to accomplish. I had a conversation earlier this week with a member of my team, and where she wanted me to give her an answer about how something should be, something that she was working on. I asked her what were the results that she wanted to see. And that gave her a space to check in and tap into the wisdom that she has and really own this project rather than letting it be my project.
I can recall times I've had to do that as well. I mean, sometimes it helps, given how you run your own business, sometimes it helps to use like those mission, vision, and values that you hear organizations have to just really remind individuals during development conversations, hey, this is who we're committed to being. Based on that, how would you solve the context? How would you solve this challenge or this business issue? But no, I think that's awesome how you really collaborated and really it sounds like you got her thinking about ways she can have a point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And the vision, mission, and values are critical.
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
think we can run an effective business without them. And I think the values have been especially helpful for us. And as a smaller law firm, the largest that our team has been is 14 people. And it's not the norm in the legal world and in a lot of small businesses to have a vision, a mission, and values. And those values have really been critical for us to make key decisions whenever there's a decision point. From something small with a client to something, larger like team members who are out of alignment with the values that our firm lives by.
Yeah, no, that's interesting what you brought up. I guess I didn't really know that maybe at a law firm or a legal context, that structure wasn't always there. Is that what you were saying?
Absolutely. I think most law firms, first of all, most lawyers were never trained to run a business. Most lawyers who go into business are just trying to practice law. And it takes a while for many of us to figure out that this is about running a business. I happen to be a manager within a large business for 5 years before I started my own firm. So I had some exposure to the business side of things, which was very helpful to me.
Right. Yeah, because there's law and probably sometimes even theory, and then the reality of how it shows up in the business world. And
Absolutely.
so you definitely want to kind of make sure that balance is there. So I can understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Right.
So when most people hear estate planning, they think wills and paperwork. How do you help clients think beyond documents to the values and memories they want to leave behind?
The starting place for us is not the question of what documents a client needs, but who is this client? Who are their loved ones? And what are they trying to accomplish? And what are they trying to avoid? And once we dive into that conversation, we start to identify what this is all really about, because passing money to the next generation is lovely, but that's not the whole point. The point is making sure that our loved ones can thrive as much as possible after we're gone. And money is one of the ways that we do that. So one of the things that I discovered after, 30 plus years of practice is that just passing money is not all that families need to thrive. Adult children say, and they've done studies on this, that the non-financial legacy is 10 times more important than the financial legacy. That's a lot more important, and we don't normally think about that. And what I've seen is families where they had a perfect estate plan in place, mom and dad pass away, and then the family falls apart after mom and dad are gone. And I've seen that a lot, either because of conflict or because they didn't know how to use the money well, or whatever it is, some variation on that theme of they're not thriving. And what I have come to know through mentors of my own and through working with thousands of families is that non-financial legacy is really the thing that helps our families thrive when we're gone. The wisdom, the life stories, the love that they have in tangible ways that they can hold on to after we're gone, that's what sets them up for success in their own lives. We can pass the baton so that they can run the race and run it their own way, but with a solid foundation that only we can give them.
Yeah, I can relate to all that. I would imagine that as someone's transitioning, if they thoughtfully leave an estate plan that even shares some of their expectations that they have for their family, what I want for you, what I expect from you, those are lasting words that can probably stick with the family and kind of help keep them on the right track. But there's so much upset that can come with loss, so it's hard to predict sometimes.
That's such a great point, because I help my families, focus on, sharing their hopes and dreams for their loved ones. But those expectations that you mentioned can also be incredibly helpful, and not expectations as in, I expect you to marry this kind of person,
Right.
or I expect you to go to college, but this is how I expect you to behave. I expect
Yes.
you not to fight with your siblings. And if you do, I will come back and haunt you. Like, all of those kinds of conversations do stick with people. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah. Every now and then it's like, I just remember thinking like, oh man, if my mother was here, if mommy was here, you would not be saying this to me. you know?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you're right. You're right. It's like people sometimes without realizing they can reinvent themselves after a significant person leaves the family or transitions. So that reminder of this is who I know you all to be, almost like the mission, vision, values, if you will. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. This is who we are as a family. And
Yeah.
it's even more true. People know your story. It's even more important when we leave our children at a younger age, because they don't have the benefit of growing all the way up with us. And many people think, oh, I don't need to worry about an estate plan, or I don't need to worry about passing my legacy while my children are young, because I'm going to live for a long time. I'll do that when I'm old. But we don't all get to be old. Today is the only day that we all know that we have. And every one of us knows multiple people who passed away long before we expected it. And who would you leave behind without the foundation that they need if you don't leave a foundation, if you're hit by a bus tomorrow?
Yeah, you're right. It's very easy to just make assumptions around time until something catches your attention. I feel like definitely there's so many moments from my childhood that got my attention where it's like there's almost, I feel like that my innocence changed for sure. It's like, I don't know if I can go back to being cavalier about, tomorrow being promised just once you have that wake up call. I mean, would you say the same for yourself or with your mom?
Absolutely. I've now, as an adult, had, multiple people. My best friend passed away from leukemia. I've had multiple family members who have had life-threatening situations just in the last 10 years. And they're not the old people that you would expect. So I'm very familiar with the delicacy of life and
Yeah.
the precious nature of every single moment that we have. And I forget to.
Now, I would assume that everyone in your family just turns to you for this kind of estate stuff. Is that wrong to assume? Is it still a difficult conversation within your family, even though they know this is what you do? They know this is what you're passionate about?
I think that depends on who it is. When it is a parental figure, I think it's sometimes harder to believe your child. But everybody else in my family, I think, comes to me and listens to my advice on estate planning and legacy topics.
Now, in your work, have you noticed patterns in how people approach or avoid estate planning? I think you'd even talked about how some people are focused on what they can avoid, what they want to happen, what the money they want to leave. But I can share more about the patterns that you've seen in how people approach estate planning. Would be good to hear which ones help and which ones hold people back the most.
Great question. And that is, immediately it comes to me in the context of estate planning. First of all, nobody wants to think about our own mortality. It's something that's really hard for our own brains to comprehend. And so most people put off their estate planning as long as they think that they can, because they think that once they deal with their mortality, they might die. Like it's such an uncomfortable conversation. The other thing that I see is families who are afraid to talk about the hard things. And so if there's one child who has stepped in and is taking care of mom or dad, and mom and dad want to give them a little bit of extra money because they walked away from their job and they're losing money because they're taking care, if mom and dad don't address that with the other children, it will blow up when they ask.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I could see that before you even said it. I was like, oh.
And it's a common one. And I have to say the other one that just came to me was with blended families. When somebody gets remarried and they bring children into this new relationship, it is so common for people to have things set up in joint tenancy or to just under their will leave everything to their new spouse. And what they don't realize is then if they die first and everything goes to their spouse and then the spouse dies, it often or usually ends up going to that spouse's children, and we accidentally disinherit our own children. It's tragic. I just talked to a friend this week whose family member passed away and accidentally did that.
I definitely have some firsthand experience with some of these different variables. And even now, just as we're at the age where folks are dealing with situations with their loved ones, where they're taking care of the elderly parent, and maybe one of the siblings step up. And because the other siblings aren't exposed to some of the challenges that they have to navigate, maybe they don't understand the impact on finances or time or how it shows up in this sibling's life. And so towards the end, when the parent chooses to do something special, it can be seen as favoritism. And it's like, no, this was a long journey, remember? And it's easy for folks to have amnesia. It's just really interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting. And everybody has their own story about what happened.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It all blows up when somebody becomes incapacitated. Sometimes it blows up then, and it often blows up when somebody passes away.
Now, for families who find these conversations awkward or even morbid, is there any advice on what they can do to, just kind of make this more comfortable, maybe even more meaningful?
Yes. The first one is to find a great attorney. Find an attorney who is compassionate, educational, and has patience to walk you through and be with whatever fear that you have and walk through that in order to get to the ultimate goal, which is having a plan that really serves your family. And just bite the bullet. It's for most of our lives, we know that we need to do this. And it's this nagging weight at the back of our minds that kind of drags us down. And universally, the day that people come into my office and hire us to get their estate plan started, they haven't even signed it yet. By the time they walk out the door, having paid that initial fee and knowing that their estate plan is now in progress, they heave a giant sigh of relief. Universally, they say they already have peace of mind that they didn't know that they could have just by getting it started.
Well, I think you touched on this. It's what are some of the biggest mistakes or oversights you see people make in planning ahead? Anything more you want to add there?
Waiting too long, thinking that we have more time, and especially for parents of younger children, because there's so much at stake. Who is going to raise your children if something happens to you and your spouse? And it happens, sadly, all the time. And the problem is there's nobody who's perfect to raise our own children if we get hit by a bus. And so a lot of people postpone and don't put anything in writing because there's no perfect person. But if we don't choose the best imperfect person, then a judge has to sit there and look at a panel of people who show up in front of them and decide which one they think will be best. And they are much less well equipped than you are to choose who can raise your kids.
That's a good point. If someone hasn't started yet, what's one small but powerful step that they could take this week?
I would say find a good attorney. If you're in Colorado, we have offices in Denver and Colorado Springs. We would love to support you. And if you're someplace else, you can go to the American Academy of Estate Planning Attorneys or look at online reviews, Google local estate planning and elder law attorneys, but find somebody and maybe register for an upcoming workshop or webinar that will get you started thinking through things. And then if you go to a workshop or a webinar, schedule an appointment and chat with an attorney about your situation. Keep the momentum going.
Got it. Is there anything you have coming up in terms of books, events, projects that you'd like the audience to know about? I know last year there was a book that was released, and so it would be good to just kind of hear more about any other projects or even with the book that you're comfortable sharing with the audience.
Yes, the True Wealth Family Legacy Blueprint is my third book, and I'm incredibly proud of it. It shares my system for helping people discover, cultivate, and then gift your human capital, that part of you that is 10 times more important to your family than your money. So you can find that on Amazon or at my truewealthfamily.com website. It's a way to start pulling out your story, your wisdom, so that you can pass them on to the people who matter most to you. And we do workshops. I work one-on-one with clients across the country who want to be cultivating and passing on their human capital as well. So.
Got it. No, thank you. We're close to the end, but I thought it'd be good to play a quick game. It's just a way for the audience to see another side of you. And I call it pattern check. So we wrap up each conversation with a quick pattern check. I'll give you 2 words. You pick which one you're drawn to today and then tell us why. There's no right or wrong answers. We just want your thoughts after hearing the word pairs. So the first is morning person or night owl. Which resonates more for you?
Morning person, 100%. I can't help it. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's my favorite time of the day. And hopefully,
Favorite.
Yes. Yes. And ideally with nobody else up so that I can just have some quiet time and read and drink my morning cacao.
Okay. How about adventure or comfort? What stands out?
Adventure. I like to push myself. I went on a trek in 2011 in Slovenia, a hut-to-hut trek in a country that I had never really heard of before because it was part of Yugoslavia when I was growing up. It didn't really exist. So one of the best things I've ever done. I was a newer empty nester and really found myself again. So adventure is what it's about for me.
I would imagine there's a lot of adventure in Colorado too, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Adventurous hike this weekend. So.
Exactly. Planning or spontaneity?
A combination of the two. I'm a planner. I like to have a plan for what's happening. And then I also am very comfortable throwing my plan out the window. So
I love that. Silence or conversation?
I'll say conversation because that's where, with the right person, we discover more about ourselves and the world. And silence absolutely has a place too.
Yeah, I would say silence as I've gotten older, I have a greater appreciation for it, for sure.
Yes. I think that's true for me too.
Yeah, I think growing up in Jersey, there's so much about claiming your space and speaking up that I feel like was emphasized growing up. And now it's really listening to what's not said, paying attention to even what's emotionally going on with you that guides your words. There's a lot more intention to it that I don't know if I missed it in Jersey or if it's just not covered in New Jersey. But yeah, I think silence plays a bigger role in my life now. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, Catherine, thank you for sharing your wisdom. Before we close, let's remind everyone how to get a hold of you one more time, if you don't mind.
Yes, you can find me at truewealthfamily.com, or if you're in Colorado, it's coloradoestateplan.com, and you'll find my law firm, and we would love to support you in getting your family taken care of.
Nice. Now, what I love about this conversation is that you've shown that estate planning isn't just about protecting assets. Catherine, you've used your own personal patterns to protect the people you love from unnecessary stress. And then even doing that with your clients, leaving them with a legacy rich with meaning. And that's an act of love. That's the way I see it. And a gift of clarity, compassion, and connection. So thanks for being such an example.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Yeah. So that's it for the episode of Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this session. I feel like it was full of nuggets and meaningful info that I hope can benefit you and your family. I ask you to stay grounded, stay open, and stay curious to keep moving beyond your patterns. Have a good week, everyone. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Pattern. If this episode spoke to you, leave a review or send a message. I read every note, and you can reach out to me to get more tools and resources at bukolaogantala.com.